Tonight, before we drift into the quiet of the Ice Age, let me ask you a gentle question. Have you ever wondered what it might feel like to fall asleep to the soft crackle of a campfire while imagining a world frozen in calm silence? In the next moments, you may feel your breathing slow, your body soften, and a sense of peaceful curiosity settle in as we step together into a time 20,000 years ago. This is your place to unwind, to feel safe, and to let your mind wander quietly. As you get comfortable, may I know from which country you're listening tonight, and what time it is for you right now. Before we move forward, if you enjoy relaxing historical stories like this, you're welcome to gently tap the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It helps this peaceful little corner of the internet grow, and I appreciate it deeply. Now, as the rhythm begins to slow, imagine the world covered in vast blankets of ice, soft blues, pale whites, and long quiet horizons stretching farther than the eye could see. Early humans stepped into each cold morning with patience, wrapped in fur-lined clothing, moving through snow that muffled every sound. They lived in a world where silence wasn't loneliness. It was simply the atmosphere of life. Picture the air, crisp, steady, and calm. The sun hung low, offering gentle light that brushed the frozen plains with a quiet glow. Nothing rushed them. Every action was deliberate, every breath slow, every choice a small step towards surviving the chill. This world invited stillness, the same stillness you might be beginning to feel now. If your thoughts begin to drift, that's completely fine. Let them wander the way the cold wind wandered across the tundra, soft, patient, unhurried. This story is here only to guide you gently, not to hold your attention too tightly. As we look across the frozen landscape, imagine the distant ridges of ice rising like slow-moving waves, frozen in place. These were not towering walls but quiet monuments shaped by time. Early humans understood this land deeply. They learned its rhythms, its seasons, and its quiet signals, the kind that shaped their everyday decisions. The air carried no harsh noise, only faint sounds of crunching snow beneath careful footsteps. Even the wind moved with a muted hush, gliding past rock and ice with a gentleness that feels almost familiar, like the calm you may be settling into right now. Every day, the people of this era stepped out of their shelters with simple purpose. They checked the sky for clarity, the ground for tracks, and the air for the soft scent of weather changes. Their survival was a slow collaboration with nature, never frantic, always observing. Perhaps in a way, their pace can remind us to slow down too. If your mind feels busy, allow it to release a little at a time. Sometimes, like early humans preparing for the cold, we simply need to take things one small step at a time. You're doing just fine. Let this moment be your quiet pause. Far ahead, you might imagine gentle ridges of snow smoothing the earth like folded fabric. The world 20,000 years ago was simpler, stripped of noise, technology, and urgency. Days blended together through routines that brought comfort, gathering fuel, tending fires, and preparing for long nights under clear stars. Speaking of stars, picture them shimmering above the icy world, sharp, bright, unhindered by light pollution. They didn't symbolize anything mystical or divine. They were simply part of the sky created by Allah, guiding travelers, marking seasons, and offering a calm reminder that night would always return. As you rest into this thought, let me offer a gentle reminder. You don't need to stay fully alert. You're allowed to drift in and out. This story will stay soft and steady, just like the glowing embers of a campfire as they slowly fade. Imagine the early humans sitting near a small, controlled fire, one that offered warmth only through Allah's permission. The gentle glow painted their shelters in soft amber light. They spoke quietly, sharing simple observations about the day, footprints they found, changes in the snow, signs of animals moving through the land. Their shelters were modest, built from bones, branches, hides, or caves shaped by the natural world. Nothing extravagant, just functional, warm, and made with patience. The way they crafted their living spaces might bring you a sense of calm, a reminder that even in the harshest environment, humans have always found ways to create comfort. Outside, the landscape slept. The frozen plains rested beneath layers of snow that glimmered under moonlight. The cold didn't hurry, It didn't bite sharply. It simply existed as a quiet constant. If you listen closely in your imagination, maybe you can sense that same steady quiet settling around you now. And as we breathe gently through this moment, here's another soft reminder. You don't have to follow every detail. This is history for sleep. If your eyes grow heavy, allow them to close. The story will continue to flow like a slow winter breeze across an ancient world. As the night in this ancient world deepens, imagine how early humans listened to the distant sounds carried by the cold air. A shifting branch, a soft rumble of ice settling, or the faint steps of an animal far away. Nothing startled them. These sounds were simply information, gentle cues from the environment created by Allah, helping them understand the world around them without urgency. Their evenings were unhurried. After tending their fires and ensuring their shelters were secure, they often rested quietly, letting the warmth slowly ease the tension from their bodies. They didn't rush to sleep. They allowed it to come naturally, the same way you might be letting your own thoughts soften as the story flows around you. If you find your breathing slowing, that's a good sign. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let the rhythm of this ancient, frozen world wrap around you like a calm blanket. You're safe here, unwinding gently at your own pace. Picture the sky above them, smooth, dark, and vast. It stretched endlessly, unmarred by city lights. Stars appeared sharp and steady, not demanding attention, but simply existing as part of the natural order Allah created. For early humans, the stars weren't symbols of worship or mystical beliefs. They were quiet companions in the night, a familiar backdrop during long winters. Sometimes, groups would sit together silently, listening to the fire crackle softly. In that stillness, they reflected on the day, on the tasks to come, and on the small victories that kept them going, finding shelter, tracking animals, or simply making it through another cold night. Their reflections were practical, simple, and grounded in living with the land, not in rituals or the praise of anything other than acknowledging the world as it was given by Allah. Before we continue, here is a gentle reminder. You don't need to stay awake for every detail. This calm pace is meant to guide you deeper into rest. Should your eyes grow heavier, let them close naturally. You won't miss anything urgent. Nothing in this story requires effort. Now imagine the wind outside gradually softening. In the Ice Age, winds could be harsh, but on calmer nights, they passed over icy hills with a soothing hush. That gentle hissing sound might remind you of a distant lullaby, steady and repetitive, something that reassures rather than disrupts. Inside their shelters, early humans arranged their belongings with care. Tools were placed within reach, clothing was set to dry, and bundles of gathered materials rested near the entrance. Their living spaces weren't cluttered. They were organized out of necessity, and this simplicity created a quiet order that brought comfort. Their nights often ended with slow conversations, just observations about tracks seen earlier, changes in the weather, or decisions for the morning. These were not dramatic stories, not legends, not tales of heroes, just practical exchanges spoken in low, steady voices as the fire dimmed. If your mind is beginning to drift, that's completely natural. Think of it like snow drifting across the plains, soft, gentle, and without direction. Let the drifting happen. This story is only here to make the transition easier. Far beyond their shelters, the frozen world seemed timeless, although nothing truly lasts forever. Snow accumulated and melted across seasons, plains shifted, and ice carved the land in slow, deliberate strokes. Everything changed at the pace Allah allowed, and early humans moved with that rhythm, adapting step by step. There is something calming about imagining such a world, one where noise is scarce, where days are shaped by simple routines, and where people live through patience rather than speed. That patience may be settling into you now, gently loosening your thoughts. And as we near the end of this segment, let the quiet atmosphere linger around you. The frozen plains, the distant sky, the warm shelter, all of it existing without urgency. You don't need a final conclusion here. You only need this gentle descent into rest, just like those early humans lying near their fading fire, ending another peaceful night in the frozen world. If sleep is coming, let it come. If not, Simply continue listening as softly as you wish. This calm world will stay here with you for as long as you need. Imagine stepping into a shelter during the Ice Age, a quiet space warmed by a small, controlled fire, its glow gently touching the walls. As you enter, the shift is immediate. The air softens, the wind fades away, and the quiet hum of warmth settles around you like a comforting blanket. This simple change in atmosphere is often all it takes to feel your mind slow down, the same way early humans felt relief as they crossed from the icy world outside into the safety of their shelters. Inside these shelters, everything had a purpose. Hides were stretched along the walls to block drafts, bundles of dried grasses softened the floor, and tools were arranged in careful clusters. There was no clutter, no excess, just the essentials needed to endure long winters. This simplicity created a calm order, a sense that everything had its place, and perhaps you can feel a bit of that order within yourself now. The fire, always tended with caution, provided warmth only by Allah's permission. Its gentle crackle filled the shelter with a steady rhythm, one that soothed tired bodies after a long day in the cold. The light it cast was soft and natural, flickering in a way that encouraged people to relax their shoulders and breathe more slowly. Shelters during this time varied based on where people lived. Some families stayed in caves shaped naturally by the land, their walls smooth and cool. Others built structures from mammoth bones and thick hides, layering materials to insulate against the freezing air. There were also simple huts made from branches, snow, and packed earth. Each design reflected adaptation, creativity, and the need to use whatever the land provided. As night settled in, the warmth gathered at the center of the shelter, while the edges remained cool. Early humans understood how to position themselves for comfort. Children closer to the fire, adults around them, all of them careful not to let the flames grow too high. This thoughtful balance allowed them to stay safe, warm, and deeply connected to the rhythms of nature. Sometimes, a soft murmur of conversation filled the space. Not dramatic stories or myths, just practical talk about the day, how far they traveled, what tracks they discovered, what repairs were needed. Everything spoken quietly, so as not to disturb anyone resting nearby. Their voices blended with the fire's gentle crackle, creating a kind of natural lullaby. If your thoughts begin drifting now, that's perfectly all right. Let them move the way shadows dance along the shelter walls, slow and unhurried. These moments are meant to feel soft and relaxed. Food preparation often took place near the fire. A small wooden bowl, a stone blade, a bundle of dried herbs, items set out simply and used with care. Meals were modest, warmed by the fire, and shared calmly. Eating wasn't rushed. It was a moment of restoration after a day shaped by cold winds and long walks across the snow. Clothing hung near the entrance, drying slowly from the heat. Furs and hides, stitched carefully with bone needles, became softer and more pliable with warmth. Early humans understood their materials well. They knew which pieces needed repair, which needed stretching, and which were already ready for the next day's tasks. In the quiet of the shelter, you might imagine the faint sounds outside, gentle wind brushing against hide walls, snow shifting softly under its own weight, or distant animals moving cautiously in the frozen landscape. These sounds didn't bring fear. They were simply part of the world, reminders of nature's steady presence. The sense of safety inside the shelter wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, built from routine, cooperation, and trust. People shared responsibilities, one checking the fire, another organizing tools, another preparing bedding. This teamwork wasn't spoken about with enthusiasm. It simply existed as a natural part of survival. As the fire dimmed slightly, shadows grew longer and softer. Early humans often rested together, leaning against hides or lying on dried grasses. The combination of warmth, dim light, and muffled sounds created an atmosphere made for unwinding, a peaceful rhythm not so different from the one guiding you right now. If your breathing has slowed, let it continue. In the Ice Age shelter, rest was encouraged by the environment itself. Calm moments weren't rare, they were essential. These people knew the cold would test them again tomorrow, so they embraced quiet evenings when they could. Outside, snow continued falling in a gentle, almost silent drift. Through small openings in the shelter walls, light from the moon sometimes filtered inside, faint and silver, touching the floor in narrow beams. This soft glow reminded early humans of the wider world waiting beyond their warm refuge, a world shaped by Allah's design, vast and powerful yet calm in its own way. Here inside the shelter, everything slowed. People spoke less, moved less, and allowed their minds to rest. This stillness is something you can share with them across time, an unspoken understanding that at night, warmth and quiet are enough. As we end this part of the segment, imagine yourself sitting in that glowing shelter, listening to the fire, surrounded by calm. You are welcome to let the quiet guide you deeper into rest as the frozen world outside continues its slow, peaceful night. As the night deepened, the warmth inside the shelter created a gentle contrast to the cold just beyond the walls. Early humans took comfort in this balance, knowing that each layer of hide, each stone, and each patch of snow built into their homes played a part in protecting them. Their shelter was never perfect, but it was enough, through Allah's permission, to keep them safe through countless frozen nights. Sometimes an ember would shift, sending a tiny spark upward before fading instantly. The sound was small, almost insignificant, yet it added to the rhythm of the space. The slow breathing of those gathered, the soft movement of blankets, the occasional sigh of someone finally settling into comfort. These subtle noises created an atmosphere that encouraged even the busiest mind to settle. In moments like these, families often watched the fire together, not to find meaning or tell grand stories, but simply to let the warmth pull them closer to rest. They observed how the flames curled and flickered, how the shadows stretched and softened. This simple act allowed their thoughts to drift, as yours may be drifting now. Outside the shelter, the world lay untouched. Snow gathered in smooth waves, and the wind brushed across the landscape in long, unbroken strokes. Inside, however, time felt slower. The boundaries of the shelter formed a peaceful cocoon, a place where exhaustion gave way to quiet ease. If your mind begins to wander, let it. Early humans often drifted into silence during these hours, their thoughts moving without direction, reflecting on tracks they followed, warmth they found, or paths they planned for tomorrow. Their reflections weren't intense or heavy, they were gentle acknowledgments of the day, just as your thoughts are allowed to soften now. The fire brought more than heat. Its glow offered a sense of orientation, letting people see their surroundings clearly without bright light. The dimness was enough. It encouraged calmness, lowered tension, and made rest feel natural. In that soft hue, even the simplest objects, a stone tool, a drying fur, a woven basket, looked peaceful. Occasionally, someone would adjust the hides on the walls to keep out drafts. The sound of fabric shifting was quiet but familiar, a reminder that everyone inside played a role in maintaining the warmth. Their cooperation wasn't forced. It was a natural part of living together, shaped by the need to endure long winters collectively. If your breathing is slower now, you're aligning with the same rhythm they followed. Their nights were shaped by steady routines, nothing loud or dramatic, just fire maintenance, tool organization, and comfortable stillness. These routines helped calm their minds, much like the structure of this story may be calming yours. Sometimes, a faint glow from the moon seeped through small gaps in the shelter walls. This light wasn't bright enough to disturb sleep. It was gentle, almost silky, painting the space with a quiet silver tone. Early humans likely appreciated these soft moments, when nature added its own touch to their carefully built refuge. Meanwhile, the fire continued its steady work. Each log released heat at its own pace, allowed by Allah, never rushed. This slow burn mirrored the pace of life inside the shelter, unhurried, patient, grounded. Even the children, worn out from cold air and long steps in deep snow, found comfort in this rhythm. You might picture them now, wrapped in hides, their breathing even and peaceful. The adults nearby remained alert enough to tend to the fire if needed, yet calm enough to drift in and out of light rest. No one resisted sleep. They welcomed it, knowing that rest strengthened them for the days ahead. If your eyes are growing heavy, it's okay. This story doesn't demand attention. Let your thoughts fade the way the fire dims at the end of the night, slowly, gently, naturally. Early humans surrendered to rest in these quiet hours, trusting that their shelter and their preparations, granted by Allah's mercy, would carry them safely until morning. As the night stretched on, the shelter took on an even deeper stillness. Footsteps outside faded into silence. The wind hummed more softly. The glow of the fire turned from bright orange to a warm, muted ember light that illuminated only the closest surfaces. Here, in this moment, imagining the warmth, the dimness, the safety of that ancient shelter, you can allow yourself to settle fully. The frozen world outside continues its gentle night, and inside, there is nothing you need to do but rest. Whenever you're ready, sleep can meet you just as calmly as it met them, wrapped in warmth, wrapped in quiet, and carried softly through the long night. Imagine standing at the entrance of an Ice Age shelter early in the morning, when the cold air feels sharp enough to still the world for a moment. Before stepping outside, early humans took their time preparing themselves layer by layer. This wasn't rushed, and it wasn't complicated. It was a slow, deliberate ritual of protection, each garment chosen carefully to hold warmth granted by Allah, allowing them to endure the wide, frozen plains that waited beyond their shelter walls. Clothing during this era wasn't decorative. It was essential. Every piece served a purpose, shaped by the environment and the tools they crafted with their own hands. Furs, hides, sinew, and woven grasses were all part of their wardrobe, each prepared with patience. When you imagine them dressing this way, you might feel your own breathing match their calm pace, steady, thoughtful, unhurried. They often began with a base layer, soft inner fur pressed gently against the skin, chosen for its ability to trap warmth even when the air bit with freezing cold. These inner layers were usually made from smaller animals whose coats were naturally insulating. Early humans understood their materials well, recognizing which types offered the most comfort and durability. Over this, they added thicker hides, pieces shaped and stitched using fine bone needles and durable threads made from sinew. The process of sewing was careful and repetitive, each pull of the thread tightening the seams and ensuring not a single draft could slip through. The sound of hide brushing against hide might have been one of the soft rhythms of life in their shelter. If your mind begins to soften with these details, allow it. The act of preparing clothing was slow and steady, much like the peaceful pace of this narration meant to guide you toward deeper rest. Outer layers were designed to withstand wind and snow. These were heavier, sometimes oiled with natural fats to resist moisture. When worn, they created a structured barrier between the fragile warmth of the body and the cold vastness outside. The weight of these garments wasn't uncomfortable. It was grounding, like a steady hand resting across your shoulders. Footwear was equally important. Early humans crafted boots lined with fur and wrapped with hide, securing them with long straps of sinew. These boots allowed them to walk across icy surfaces without losing precious body heat. Each step in the snow was cushioned and quiet, leaving behind prints that told the story of their daily movements. Around their hands, they wrapped layers of softened hide, sometimes adding fur inside for extra warmth. Their gloves weren't tight-fitting. They were designed for utility, keeping the hands protected while still allowing them to hold tools and carry materials. These hand coverings were simple but effective, shaped by necessity rather than style. If your thoughts feel like they are drifting, let them drift like snowflakes pushed gently by the wind. The details here aren't meant to hold your full attention. They're meant to relax your mind through calm imagery. Hoods were often part of their clothing as well. These hooded designs helped prevent heat from escaping from the head and neck, two of the most vulnerable areas in the cold. The fur around the edges created a warm pocket of air near the face, reducing the sting of icy winds against the skin. Every piece of clothing had to be maintained. Early humans regularly scraped hides to keep them flexible, restitched weak seams, and dried garments carefully near the fire. A single tear could make the cold unbearable, so they treated their clothing with the same respect they gave to their tools and shelters. During the coldest days, they layered even more. Scarves made from long strips of hide, additional wraps around the shoulders, and sometimes snow-covered cloaks to blend into the environment. These extra layers weren't worn out of fear, they were worn out of wisdom. They knew the land well enough to understand that preparation was the key to survival. Inside the shelter, clothing hung near the fire, absorbing warmth that made dressing in the morning more comfortable. The smell of dried hide and faint wood smoke became familiar, comforting scents within their daily lives. These scents signaled safety, routine, and the promise of warmth in a world shaped by ice. If your breathing has settled into a slower rhythm, that's natural. The more you imagine these scenes, the more your mind embraces the calm, steady pace early humans lived by, careful movements, thoughtful layering, and a deep respect for the cold created by Allah's design. By the time they stepped outside, fully dressed, they carried with them a quiet confidence. Their clothing didn't just protect them physically. It reassured them mentally, reminding them that through patience, preparation, and resourcefulness, they could move through even the harshest winter day. As the cold deepened outside, clothing became more than simple protection. It became a familiar comfort. Early humans treated each piece with care, knowing the materials were gifts from the natural world created by Allah, shaped by their own effort and skill. When they dressed slowly in the morning, there was a certain calmness in the process, a moment to gather themselves before stepping into the frozen landscape. While wearing layers, they also learned how to move with them. Thick hides and furs could feel heavy, but over time, the body adjusted, finding a rhythm in each step. The weight became grounding, reminding them of the warmth that wrapped around their skin. Even the way the clothing brushed softly against itself created small, soothing sounds, like gentle whispers of reassurance. If your mind begins to drift with these quiet images, let it drift comfortably. The pace of this story is meant to match the slow, steady energy of life in the Ice Age, where every movement was thoughtful and measured. Some garments were reinforced in places that endured more strain, like elbows, knees, and shoulders. These reinforced areas made the clothing more durable, ensuring it could withstand long days navigating rocky paths, frozen slopes, and snow-covered plains. The practical nature of these designs reflected a deep understanding of daily challenges. In harsher conditions, early humans wrapped additional layers around their faces, leaving only a narrow space for their eyes. This prevented frostbite and shielded them from icy winds that could sting painfully if the skin was left exposed. These coverings softened the cold, allowing them to see the world without feeling overwhelmed by it. They didn't have bright colors or decorative patterns on their clothing. Everything was natural, muted, and shaped directly by the environment. Browns, tans, grays, and whites blended with the landscape, allowing them to move quietly and remain less noticeable to animals they hunted or avoided. If your thoughts are settling into a slow rhythm, that's perfectly fine. Imagine the calmness of someone adjusting their fur-lined hood, tying sinew straps around their boots, and checking their seams one last time before stepping outside. These small, quiet tasks have a softness to them that naturally calms the mind. At night, they sometimes removed their outer layers but kept their inner garments on, allowing their bodies to retain warmth even as they settled down to rest. Clothing wasn't just for the outside, it was part of their constant relationship with the cold. This layering ensured they could sleep without shivering, wrapped in warmth that felt secure and comforting. When their clothing became worn or damaged, repairs were done slowly and carefully near the fire. A bone needle dipped through hide with a soft, repetitive motion. Each stitch pulled the torn edges together, restoring the garment strength. There was something almost meditative about this process, a task done quietly while the night stretched on outside. Imagine the sound of stitching, tiny, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. No rush, no pressure, just a gentle flow of work that fit the quiet atmosphere of the shelter. Early humans often completed these repairs while others rested, creating a sense of shared responsibility and calm cooperation. If you feel your focus fading in and out, let that happen naturally. This narration, like the distant crackle of a fire, is not meant to demand attention. It's simply here to guide you gently toward stillness. During long journeys, clothing was adjusted throughout the day. A hood lowered when the sun was kinder, extra layers added when the wind picked up again. These small adjustments helped them stay comfortable and aware of their environment. They listened to their bodies and responded with patience, never rushing the process. If snow clung to their outer layers, they brushed it off gently before it could melt and freeze again. Every gesture had purpose, simple, efficient, part of a daily rhythm shaped by experience. Even these small movements had a soothing quality, like brushing dust from a blanket or smoothing wrinkles from fabric. Clothing also played a role in bonding. Elders taught the young how to stitch, scrape, soften, and repair hides. The lessons weren't delivered with lectures. They were shared through quiet demonstration, with hands guiding hands, and movements repeated until they became second nature. As the last layer was secured and the final adjustments made, early humans stepped outside fully prepared. The layers wrapped around them like a gentle embrace, holding the warmth close and shielding them from the cold world beyond. Each garment was both a tool for survival and a source of quiet comfort. In these layered clothes, they faced the day with steady confidence. And in imagining their calm, methodical preparation, perhaps you can feel a sense of gentleness settling into your own thoughts, a reminder that even in the coldest times, warmth can be carried with you, one careful layer at a time. In the frozen world of 20,000 years ago, food was never taken for granted. Each morning, early humans stepped into the cold with a calm determination, knowing that their survival depended on understanding the land Allah created, its rhythms, its animals, and its quiet signs. The search for food wasn't rushed. It was a slow, steady effort built on observation, patience, and cooperation. The landscape around them offered little at first glance. Snow stretched endlessly, covering plants and softening every footprint. Yet beneath this quiet surface, life persisted. Early humans learned to read the land like a map, noticing tiny details, a trail pressed lightly into the snow, the faint scent of animals carried by the wind, or the way branches bent under their own weight. Meat was one of their main food sources. Large animals like reindeer and mammoths roamed in herds across the tundra, moving with the seasons. Early humans studied these movements carefully. They didn't chase the animals in chaos. They watched, learned, and chose the right moment to act. Their approach required teamwork and calm coordination. If your thoughts begin to slow while imagining these scenes, let them. The rhythm of their lives was never frantic, and this story isn't meant to rush you either. Hunting tools were simple but effective: stone-tipped spears, wooden shafts, and sometimes nets woven from plant fibers. Each tool was shaped with patience, then tested and adjusted. None of these tools held power on their own. They were merely instruments through which Allah's provision could reach them, used with gratitude and care. Plant-based foods existed too, though far less abundant in the cold. In the warmer months, early humans gathered berries, seeds, roots, and hardy plants that survived near riverbanks. These were dried and stored for winter, kept safe in small containers lined with hide. Even a handful of preserved berries could brighten a meal during the harshest weeks. Inside their shelters, food preparation became a soothing routine. Meat was cut into strips and dried near the fire. Bones were cracked open for their rich marrow. Fat was carefully melted and stored, providing essential warmth and energy. Every part of an animal was used respectfully, and nothing wasted. If your breathing has softened, that's natural. Early humans often worked quietly during these tasks, the sound of knives tapping against bone or hide blending with the low crackle of the fire. These simple, repetitive sounds encouraged a sense of calm inside the shelter. Some days were dedicated to gathering small resources that seemed insignificant but made a difference: grasses for weaving, herbs for flavor, or snow melted into drinking water. These tasks weren't dramatic, yet they shaped daily life, grounding the community in steady routines. When hunting trips took longer, groups often walked across snowy plains for hours, following fresh tracks. Their steps were slow but efficient, conserving energy in the cold. Nobody hurried ahead. The group stayed together, moving like one quiet unit against the vast white landscape. If your mind begins to drift, let it drift gently, like snow moving across open ground. The story will continue without demanding your attention. When a hunt was successful, it wasn't a moment of loud celebration. It was relief, gratitude, and quiet cooperation. The animal was processed carefully on the spot, its meat wrapped securely, its bones collected for tools, and its hide prepared for clothing or shelter. Every person had a role, and every movement was purposeful. Food wasn't eaten in large feasts. Meals were simple and nourishing, small portions shared evenly among the group. Children were fed first, then elders, then the rest. Survival in the Ice Age meant caring for one another with steady responsibility. Cooking was done low and slow. Meat roasted near the fire gave off a soft, comforting aroma that filled the shelter, mixing with the scent of smoke and dried herbs. The warmth of the fire brought out the flavors, creating meals that restored strength after long days in the harsh cold. If you feel your eyes growing heavier, let them be heavy. The act of imagining a warm meal in a frozen world, prepared with patience, eaten in calm silence, can bring a sense of comfort that settles deep within you. Even on the hardest days, early humans found enough. Through Allah's mercy, through patience, and through cooperation, they always managed to gather what they needed. Their relationship with the land was not one of dominance, but of understanding, recognizing that survival came from effort, observation, and respect for the world around them. And as we pause here at the end of part 1, imagine the quiet moment after a long day, a simple meal, warm hands, and the soft glow of firelight reflecting off snow outside. The kind of moment that lets the body slow down and the mind restfully drift. As the cold stretched across the landscape, food storage became just as important as food gathering. Inside their shelters, early humans organized their supplies with care, placing dried meat in elevated spots away from moisture, storing rendered fat in tightly wrapped containers, and placing gathered plants in cool, shaded areas where they would last longer. Their discipline in managing these resources allowed them to face long winters with a calm confidence. Sometimes, they used naturally cold spaces outside the shelter as simple preservation pits. These pits, lined with snow and packed with hides, kept food fresh for weeks. The cold itself became a tool, working steadily as part of the system Allah designed. Early humans didn't fight the environment. They learned to use its strengths to their advantage, moving in harmony with the season. If your thoughts start drifting into a softer space, let them drift. This part of the story doesn't need your full focus. It simply moves like a slow breath through a quiet night. During the warmer months, preparation intensified. They gathered as much as they could, drying and smoking meat, shaping storage bags from hide, and weaving simple baskets for berries and herbs. These months were their chance to prepare for what they knew would eventually return. Long stretches of deep cold when the land offered almost nothing fresh. Meals inside the shelter were humble but warming. Sometimes they boiled small pieces of meat with snowmelt in simple stone-lined pits, creating broths rich enough to bring strength back into tired bodies. The smell of the broth filled the shelter lightly, comforting everyone inside, children, elders, hunters, and gatherers alike. If your breathing has slowed again, that's a good sign. Let the warmth of this imagined meal soften your thoughts, just as it softened theirs after a long day in the cold. Fat was especially important. It burned slowly in the body, giving warmth and energy. Early humans saved every bit of it, melting it carefully and pouring it into containers to use later. In the coldest weeks, even a small amount could help maintain strength. They knew its value deeply, treating it with gratitude and without waste. Foraging also played a quiet role in survival. Even in winter, small edible plants could be found beneath patches of snow or near sheltered rock formations. These discoveries were small victories, tiny reminders that life continued even in the coldest months. A handful of winter greens, or a few buried roots, could make a simple meal feel complete. If your mind wanders, let it. This rhythm of gathering and preparing food wasn't fast or dramatic. It was gentle, steady, and filled with patience, just like the flow of this narration meant to help you settle down. Some nights were dedicated to planning. The group discussed where animals had been spotted, which areas showed new plant growth, and which trails were safest after recent snowfall. These discussions were practical and soft-spoken, guided by observation rather than urgency. Their calm voices blended naturally with the fire's glow. Every successful hunt or gathering effort strengthened their trust in one another. They understood that survival wasn't an individual task. It was collective, built on teamwork, shared effort, and the quiet reliance on skills passed down through generations. Even children learned these rhythms early, not through harsh lessons, but through watching and helping in small ways. During harsh blizzards, when venturing outside was impossible, they relied entirely on their stored food. These were days of stillness. Nobody traveled, nobody hunted. The shelter became a warm pocket in a world overwhelmed by snow and wind. Meals on these days tasted different, richer somehow, because they reminded everyone that their preparation had paid off. As the storm raged outside, early humans often sat in peaceful silence, listening to the wind while sharing small, warm portions of their stored food. The contrast between the violent weather and the gentle calm inside the shelter reinforced a deep awareness that safety, warmth, and nourishment were blessings shaped by effort, cooperation, and the natural laws set by Allah. If your eyes are growing heavier, it makes sense. Imagining warmth against the backdrop of snow has a way of softening the mind. Early humans likely felt the same comfort, the sense of being sheltered, fed, and together as the frozen world continued its quiet drift outside. And as we reach the end of this segment, picture this final moment: a dim fire, the last bite of a warm meal, the sound of snow piling softly outside, and a group of early humans settling into rest. The world remains cold, but inside, there is warmth, there is food, and there is peace, steady, simple, and enough. In the quiet world of the Ice Age, tools were not crafted in haste. They were shaped slowly, with patience and intention, often during the calm hours inside the shelter while the wind whispered outside. Early humans understood that the land Allah created required thoughtful preparation, and their tools reflected that understanding. Each blade, each handle, each polished stone carried the quiet rhythm of careful hands at work. The first step in making a tool often began with selection. A stone wasn't chosen because it looked impressive, but because it felt right, its weight balanced, its shape sturdy, its edges promising. Early humans ran their fingers along its surface, feeling for potential. There was no rush in this moment. They let their instincts guide them, listening to the subtle clues the material offered. If your thoughts begin to soften at this imagery, let them. The process of shaping tools was slow and meditative, much like the gentle flow of this story. Once the right stone was chosen, shaping began. A larger rock was used to strike the edges, chipping away flakes bit by bit. The sound echoed softly inside the shelter, a muted tapping that never disturbed the calm. Each controlled strike revealed a sharper edge, turning a rough stone into something useful. This tapping might lull you the same way it once lulled those who depended on these tools for survival. Stone flakes that fell away weren't wasted. Even the smaller pieces could become arrow tips, scrapers, or simple cutting tools. Early humans valued every fragment, understanding that usefulness often came in small, humble forms. Nothing was discarded without thought. Handles were shaped from wood or bone. Branches were trimmed and smoothed with the very tools they were meant to hold. The process involved scraping, shaving, and polishing, all done with slow movements that followed the natural grain of the material. A good handle felt comfortable in the hand, balanced, sturdy, and suited for long use in the cold. If your mind drifts as you imagine these hands at work, allow it to drift gently. The quiet repetition of toolmaking was soothing for them, and it can be soothing for you too. Bone tools required even more patience. Long bones from hunted animals were cleaned, dried, and then shaped into needles, hooks, and fine points. These pieces were incredibly valuable. A single bone needle could repair clothing, fix shelter panels, and stitch hides together. Such tools made daily life possible, and early humans treated them with the respect they deserved. To sharpen blades, they rubbed stones together in slow, circular motions. The sound was soft and gritty, like sand being brushed gently across a surface. This polishing reduced roughness and brought out the blade's full potential. The process could take a long time, but there was comfort in the pace, a sense of purpose in each movement. Sinew, taken from animal ligaments, was stretched, dried, and twisted into strong binding material. It was used to tie handles, attach spearheads, and reinforce clothing. Preparing sinew required gentle pulling and smoothing, a quiet task often done near the fire during the evening, when conversation naturally slowed. If your breathing becomes deeper while listening, let it. The slow, purposeful nature of these tasks naturally encourages calmness. The final assembly of a tool was done with care, blade and handle aligned carefully, bound together with sinew or plant fibers, sometimes sealed with natural resin. Nothing was rushed. A poorly made tool could mean danger or wasted effort in a harsh environment, so they took their time, trusting the process. When a tool was finished, it wasn't celebrated loudly. Instead, it was tested quietly, admired for its usefulness, and then placed gently among other tools. Each one had its role: cutting, scraping, hunting, carving. Together, they formed the simple toolkit that supported everyday survival. Inside the shelter, these tools rested neatly in small clusters along the walls. Their presence was reassuring. Even in the middle of winter, early humans could look at them and know they were prepared. Each tool was a reminder of the work their hands had done, through Allah's permission, to protect their families. If your eyelids grow heavier now, that's perfectly natural. The slow rhythm of shaping tools, the tapping, scraping, smoothing, mirrors the steady rhythm of rest. There is no need to stay sharply focused. Just let the imagery settle gently around you. And as we pause at the end of part 1, picture the final scene: a quiet shelter, a small fire flickering softly, and a set of carefully crafted tools resting in the dim glow. Outside, the frozen world stretches endlessly, but inside, there is warmth, purpose, and the steady comfort of things made patiently by human hands. As the night deepened and the fire dimmed, toolmaking often continued in gentle silence. Early humans treated these quiet hours as an opportunity to refine the work they began during the day. With fewer distractions and the soft hum of warmth around them, their movements grew even more deliberate. It was a time when their minds could settle into the rhythm of creation without hurry. Sometimes they held a nearly finished tool up to the firelight, rotating it slowly to inspect the edges and curves. The faint glow illuminated every detail: the smoothness of the handle, the sharpness of the blade, the strength of the bindings. If something felt imperfect, they adjusted it with patience. They understood that care taken now could make the difference between success and loss in the frozen world outside. If your thoughts grow soft while imagining this scene, let them soften. The slow evaluation of a tool mirrors the calm scanning your mind does before drifting into rest. Storage was an important part of their routine. Tools were placed where they could be easily found in the dim morning light. Heavy tools sat near the entrance, ready for travel or hunting, while more delicate items, needles, scrapers, arrowheads, were kept in small pouches or tucked into woven baskets. This quiet organization helped them begin each day without stress or searching. Occasionally, a tool would break. It wasn't seen as a disaster, only a reminder that everything they used had limits. Early humans calmly gathered the broken pieces, deciding whether they could be reshaped into something new. Often, a broken blade became a smaller knife, or a snapped handle found new life as part of another tool. Nothing was wasted, because every resource held value in the cold world they lived in. If your eyelids feel heavier now, it's perfectly fine. These gentle, repetitive actions are meant to guide your mind into a quieter space. Sharpening tools was another nightly ritual. A blade placed against a smooth stone, drawn slowly in one direction, created a soft scraping sound that blended into the shelter's calm. The movement was almost meditative, consistent, patient, unhurried. Even those who weren't sharpening anything could find comfort in the sound. Children learned by watching. They sat close to the adults, observing the movements of hands that shaped their world. Lessons were not given through speeches or long explanations. They were absorbed naturally through repetition and presence. Over time, those young hands learned to mimic the motions, forming their own early creations. During storms, when travel was impossible, toolmaking became the main activity that kept everyone focused and at ease. The shelter felt warmer during these times, filled with the soft sounds of scraping, polishing, and the occasional hushed conversation. The harmony of these tasks helped ease the uncertainty of bad weather outside. If your breathing has steadied, let it stay slow. Imagine the calm of sitting among people shaping tools with care, each movement deliberate. The the fire warming their backs as snow falls softly beyond the shelter walls. Some tools required collaboration, one person holding the material while another struck or shaped it. This teamwork created a sense of connection, a steady bond. The cold outside might have been harsh, but inside, these moments of shared work kept their spirits grounded and calm. By the time a tool was finished, it felt like a small achievement born from patience. It wasn't just an object, it represented time spent together, effort made with focus, and skill passed down across generations. Holding a completed tool in their hands reminded them that even in a frozen world, human creativity and persistence thrive through Allah's permission. As the last tasks of the night wrapped up, tools were set aside gently. The group settled into their resting places, the warmth of the fire fading into a soft, steady glow. The tools rested too, waiting quietly for the next day's demands. If your mind has begun to drift beyond the imagery, that's okay. Let the calm settle deeper, like embers cooling in a quiet shelter. Nothing more is required of you, only to rest alongside the quiet rhythm of this ancient world. And as this segment closes, imagine the faint light of dawn beginning to gather beyond the shelter walls. The people inside sleep peacefully, their tools ready, their preparations complete, and the cold world outside waiting patiently for another day. Long journeys across the Ice Age landscape began long before any footsteps touched the snow. Early humans prepared themselves slowly, wrapping layer after layer of warm clothing, adjusting their tools, and whispering simple plans for the day. These journeys were not rushed. They moved with a calm acceptance of the world Allah created, vast, frozen, and breathtakingly quiet. The first step outside the shelter always carried the same sensation, a deep, crisp cold that softened the senses and slowed the mind. As they walked, the cold air filled their lungs with a gentle sting. Their breaths formed clouds that drifted upward, blending with the pale morning sky. The snow beneath their feet compressed softly, creating a steady rhythm: crunch, step, crunch, step. This repetitive sound guided their pace, calming their thoughts in the same way a slow heartbeat settles the body before sleep. The land ahead stretched without interruption. Rolling plains of snow glimmered in the early light. Hills rose in smooth arcs, their shapes softened by wind and time. Nothing in this world was abrupt. Even the shadows moved subtly as the sun climbed higher. Early humans didn't hurry through this terrain. They read the land carefully, noting every track, every shift of wind, every distant shape on the horizon. If your mind starts drifting with these images, allow it. The slow movement of a winter landscape naturally eases the busyness from your thoughts. Traveling in groups brought comfort. Nobody walked alone through such wide silence. They moved in a line, spaced just enough to follow the lead traveler's steps while watching the snow ahead for signs of danger or opportunity. A lifted hand, a slight nod, or a pause was all it took to communicate. Long journeys rarely needed words. They carried only what they needed: tools, spare bindings, small bundles of dried food, and hides for rest stops. These items hung lightly from their belts or shoulders, swaying gently with each step. The weight was manageable, balanced carefully to conserve energy over the long distances they often crossed. Sometimes, they followed the migrations of animals. Reindeer tracks pointed the way, leading them across frozen rivers and through valleys carved by ancient ice. These tracks were more than signs, they were pathways of life. Through Allah's mercy, animals moved across the land in patterns that provided humans the opportunity to survive, and early humans respected this delicate balance. If your breathing begins to slow, that's perfectly natural. The rhythm of quiet footsteps on snow has a way of calming even the most restless mind. Wind was a constant companion. Some days it brushed past them gently, barely noticeable. Other days it pushed against their bodies, requiring them to lean into its force. They wrapped their hoods tighter and continued forward, step by step. The wind wasn't their enemy. It was simply part of the world's mood, something to accept rather than resist. When the terrain became difficult, steep slopes, icy patches, or deep snow, they adjusted their formation. The strongest stepped forward first, pressing paths for the others. Children and elders stayed in the middle, protected from the harshest cold. This cooperation kept everyone moving steadily, without strain or panic. If your thoughts soften here, let them soften fully. Imagine how peaceful it felt to walk in a world where the only sounds were snow, wind, and the quiet breathing of companions moving beside you. Occasionally, they stopped to rest. They gathered behind natural windbreaks, large rocks, icy ridges, or clusters of snow-covered shrubs. These breaks helped conserve warmth. They shared small portions of dried meat or fat, letting their bodies recover before continuing their slow trek across the frozen plains. Resting was silent, not because they feared what lurked in the wild, but because silence felt natural. The land itself encouraged it. The cold rewarded stillness with clarity, helping them listen to distant sounds, cracking ice, moving animals, or shifting snow on faraway slopes. If your eyelids grow heavier during these pauses, that's completely fine. The calm they felt is the same calm this story tries to offer you now. Snowdrifts shaped their journey. Some were shallow and easy to cross, while others rose like frozen waves. They moved around the tallest drifts, choosing the safest route rather than the fastest one. Patience kept them warm. Patience kept them alive. Each step carried them farther from their shelter, yet they never felt lost. They read the landscape the way we read simple directions: natural, intuitive, and familiar. Hills, rivers, and valleys guided them, always leading them to places where animals grazed or plants survived beneath the snow. As midday light touched the snow with a pale glow, the world seemed to brighten, not in color, but in clarity. Shadows softened, and the cold air grew steadier. It was during this time that they often made the most progress, walking with a calm determination that mirrored the smooth stretch of land ahead. And as we pause here at the end of part 1, imagine the group continuing forward across the endless white, steady steps, warm breath, quiet minds, moving through a world shaped by ice and patience, guided by the same calm that gently invites you toward rest. As the group pressed farther across the frozen landscape, the light began to soften. Afternoon in the Ice Age wasn't warm, but it carried a gentle shift, a subtle easing of the morning's sharp chill. The sun hung low even at midday, casting long shadows behind the travelers, stretching across the snow like quiet companions walking with them. Every movement remained deliberate, every breath controlled, preserving energy the way early humans had learned through generations. Sometimes they followed old paths carved by earlier journeys. Tracks from past hunts or migrations became faint guides, reminding them where the land dipped, where rivers crossed, and where herds once moved. Even when the snow erased most of the markings, a small curve of terrain or a break in the wind would reveal the memory of past footsteps. These hints helped them stay oriented without needing spoken direction. If your thoughts begin drifting softly with these images, let them drift. The slow pace of a winter journey has a way of quieting the mind naturally. As they walked, they often scanned the sky. Clouds drifted in slow layers, their shapes changing with the shifting wind. Some clouds signaled calm weather, while others hinted at incoming snow. Early humans learned how to read these signs intuitively. Their awareness didn't create fear, it created preparedness, a quiet readiness shaped through patient experience. Occasionally, they crossed frozen rivers. The ice glimmered like pale glass, reflecting the sky above. They tested it gently before stepping forward, placing their weight slowly, listening for any sound beneath them. When the ice held firm, they crossed in a single, quiet line. The crunch of snow gave way to the soft tap of boots on ice, a calm and delicate rhythm. If you're sinking deeper into relaxation, allow it. These simple, cautious movements echo the slow rhythm that helps the body ease into rest. During long journeys, the group rarely spoke unless necessary. A single gesture, 2 fingers pointing left, a raised palm signaling pause, a nod indicating safety, was enough to communicate. Silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was natural, reinforced by the world around them where wind and snow spoke louder than human voices ever needed to. When they needed warmth, they huddled together for a brief moment. Body heat shared through layers of fur and hide created pockets of comfort that helped them regain strength. These short rests weren't dramatic. They were woven into the rhythm of travel, as steady and essential as footsteps in the snow. If your breathing has slowed to match this gentle pace, let it continue. The story is here to help you drift, not to keep you awake. Sometimes the group spotted distant shapes on the horizon. A moving herd, shifting shadows of animals migrating through the plains. These moments brought a quiet sense of purpose. They didn't chase immediately. Instead, they adjusted their direction slightly, following the signs with patience, always mindful of conserving energy in the cold. Snow occasionally fell during their travel, not in heavy storms, but in light, delicate flakes that settled on their clothing. These flakes gathered slowly, softening the edges of their hoods and cloaks, creating a thin white layer that blended them even more into the landscape. The sensation was peaceful, almost soothing, as though the world was covering them in a soft blanket. When they grew tired, they didn't push themselves recklessly. They paused, allowing their legs to rest and their breaths to deepen. Their bodies knew that endurance came from pacing, not speed. Every break was a moment of stillness where they could listen to the silence stretching across the frozen plains. If your eyes feel heavier now, that's expected. Even imagining these pauses can lull the mind toward rest. Toward late afternoon, the group looked for signs of shelter. Rock formations that blocked the wind, clusters of shrubs that indicated softer ground, or gentle slopes where the snow wasn't too deep. They knew the value of choosing the right place to stop before night settled fully upon the land. The sun eventually dipped lower, casting pale gold across the snow. The shadows grew longer, stretching toward the horizon. This transition marked the final stretch of their journey for the day. Their steps remained steady, their breaths visible in the cooling air. As they approached a suitable resting area, a sense of relief settled quietly over the group. Not excitement, not celebration, just a calm recognition that they had traveled safely once again. The frozen world around them remained vast and powerful, yet their careful preparation had carried them through. And as this part of the segment closes, imagine them settling into place, adjusting their layers, watching their warm breaths fade into the evening air. The land grows quieter, the sky darker, and their long journey across the ice ends in peaceful stillness, inviting you to sink deeper into your own sense of rest. In the frozen world of the Ice Age, survival was never a task carried by one person alone. Early humans lived in small, tightly connected communities where everyone contributed in quiet, meaningful ways. Their strength didn't come from loud declarations or heroic moments. It came from calm cooperation, steady routines, and the comforting knowledge that they were never facing the cold world on their own. In this shared togetherness, they found warmth that went far beyond fire. Inside their shelters, mornings began with simple responsibilities. One person tended the fire, coaxing its embers back to life. Another checked the food supplies, while others prepared tools or checked the condition of their clothing. No one needed instructions. These tasks flowed naturally, passed down through years of quiet teamwork. It was this gentle rhythm of shared roles that kept their community strong. If your thoughts start to drift with these images, let them drift softly. The peaceful cooperation of these small groups has a calming effect, just like the slow pace of this story. Children observed everything. They learned by watching how adults move through their responsibilities. Careful hands stitching hides, patient eyes scanning the horizon, quiet voices discussing the day's needs. There were no formal lessons, no raised voices, only example after example of how to contribute gently to the group's survival. Food gathering was often done in pairs or small teams. One person tracked, another listened, a third carried supplies. They walked close enough to share warmth but far enough to cover more ground. Conversations were rare, not because they lacked companionship, but because the snow-covered world encouraged mindful silence. Cooperation didn't require constant talking. It required understanding. If your breathing becomes slower, let it stay slow. Early humans also breathed this way, steady, measured, in tune with the quiet of the land. When a task grew difficult, others stepped in without being asked. Someone struggling to carry a heavy hide would feel another set of hands arrive beside them. A person repairing tools might find someone else joining to prepare bindings or sort materials. These small gestures were never dramatic but formed the foundation of their community's resilience. At night, they rested close together. Their shared warmth helped them endure the cold, and their shared presence eased the weight of the long winter. Even the smallest child contributed simply by being there, adding warmth and reminding everyone why their efforts mattered. In this closeness, they found a sense of peace that made even the coldest nights feel bearable. If you feel your mind softening with these thoughts, allow it. The quiet unity of these communities reflects the kind of calm connection that gently encourages rest. Decision-making was also shared. Before long hunts or journeys, the group gathered in a circle. Not for ceremony, but for simple discussion. Each voice mattered. The elders provided memory and experience, while younger adults contributed strength and fresh observations. Their choices were shaped collectively, grounded in practicality and mutual respect. Inside the shelter, space was shared thoughtfully. Tools were placed where everyone could reach them. Food was distributed fairly. Warmth from the fire was balanced so no one was left in the cold. These arrangements weren't rules. They were natural expressions of care. If your mind wanders now, let it. The story itself moves like the steady pulse of a small community working in harmony. Even during harsh weather, the group found ways to stay productive without stress. Some repaired clothing, others shaped tools, while a few tended children or prepared food. There was always something to do, but never a sense of panic or overwork. They matched the pace of the winter itself, slow, thoughtful, deliberate. Laughter, when it appeared, was gentle. A shared moment, a simple observation, a small success could bring soft smiles or quiet chuckles. These fragile moments mattered in a harsh world. They reminded everyone that even in the coldest times, humanity remained warm within them. Their unity wasn't driven by grandeur. It was built through daily acts of support, helping tie a binding, offering a piece of food, taking over a tiring task. These small things created a foundation of trust that allowed them to face the frozen landscape with confidence, not fear. As we pause at the end of part 1, imagine this peaceful scene, a group of people moving together through their daily tasks, slow and quiet, supporting one another without hesitation. In their shared effort, they created a shelter not just from the cold, but from loneliness and uncertainty, a gentle reminder that togetherness can be its own form of warmth. As the days passed, every member of the community knew their part in maintaining harmony. Even the smallest tasks, brushing snow away from a shelter's entrance, arranging tools neatly, or gathering twigs for the fire, helped lighten the responsibilities of others. These gentle contributions formed an unspoken agreement. No one carried the weight of survival alone. When someone returned from a long journey, the group welcomed them not with noise or celebration, but with simple relief. A warm place by the fire was offered. A share of food was placed nearby. Rest was encouraged. This quiet reception reflected their understanding that each person's strength was precious and needed to be cared for with kindness. If your thoughts are drifting between these scenes, let them drift softly. These moments of mutual care are meant to settle your mind, not occupy it fully. During the darkest winter days, when sunlight barely touched the snow, the community relied even more on each other's presence. Small conversations became a comfort. Soft exchanges about the weather, the tracks they had noticed earlier, or the best places to gather materials. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. Just small threads of connection woven through the quiet. Children played gently near the fire, their movements soft to avoid disturbing those working nearby. Their laughter, light and brief, warmed the shelter in ways that the fire alone couldn't. Their presence reminded the adults of continuity, of purpose, and of the reason they worked so carefully each day. If your breathing has grown slower, let it remain slow. This gentle community rhythm naturally encourages a drifting mind. Elders, though slower in movement, played an essential role. They shared wisdom about the land, the weather, and the subtle signs that younger eyes might overlook. Their knowledge, shaped through years of experience, gently guided the group. They weren't leaders by force, they were guides through memory. Gathering around the fire in the evenings allowed the community to settle into calm unity. Everyone found a place, some sitting close for warmth, others leaning against hides or stone walls. The fire cast soft shadows across their faces, making the shelter feel even more intimate. Silence was normal here, peaceful, shared. If your mind fades in and out of these images, that's perfectly fine. This segment isn't meant to demand focus, it's meant to cradle your thoughts gently. On nights when the wind howled outside, the community drew closer. They relied on each other's warmth, arranging their bedding so that heat spread evenly across the group. The storm outside became background noise, a reminder of the world's vastness and their own small but steady place within it. During these storms, tasks were done quietly. Someone checked that the firewood stayed dry. Someone else ensured that tools were safely stored. Another prepared simple meals to keep everyone nourished. These acts were small, but together they created a shelter of both warmth and reassurance. If your eyes feel heavy, allow them to grow heavier. This is the same slow descent into rest that early humans felt as they settled together at the end of long days. Even disagreements, when they happened, were brief. The harshness of the environment taught them to value peace. They resolved issues through calm discussion or quiet compromise, aware that unity was essential in a world where cooperation meant survival. When the weather finally eased, they emerged together to assess the land. Some checked for animal tracks. Others looked for fallen branches or plants that had survived beneath the snow. Each step was guided by a collective understanding of their needs, each decision shaped by gentle collaboration. As the day faded once more, they returned to the shelter, bringing with them the small successes of the day. Resources gathered, knowledge shared, tasks completed. Their achievements were quiet but meaningful, woven into the rhythm of the group's daily life. And as this segment comes to a soft close, imagine the community settling once again around the fire. Their breaths slow, their movements gentle, their togetherness forming a warm barrier against the frozen night. In this shared calm, they found the strength to face whatever tomorrow brought, a reminder that even in the coldest world, connection can create its own kind of warmth. As evening settled over the Ice Age landscape, the world outside softened into a muted hush. The long shadows of the frozen plain stretched quietly across the snow, and early humans began returning to their shelters with steady, unhurried steps. These evenings were not filled with activity or noise. They were moments meant for unwinding, for letting the cold of the day fade gently from the body, and for easing the mind into calm reflection while the fire welcomed them home with its warm glow. Inside the shelter, the air carried a comforting warmth. The small fire crackled softly, offering just enough light to illuminate familiar shapes, bundles of hides, carefully placed tools, and the gentle outlines of those settling into their resting spots. It was in these quiet moments that the community found time to simply exist together, without tasks demanding their attention. If your thoughts begin to slow with this imagery, allow them to settle. Quiet evenings have a natural way of loosening the tension stored in the mind. People often sat near the fire, letting its warmth seep slowly through their layers of clothing. The light flickered gently across their faces, highlighting tired eyes, soft breaths, and the steady rhythm of bodies beginning to relax. No one felt the need to rush. They moved with the same patience that guided their days, trusting the quiet to guide them toward rest. Simple reflections filled these evenings, not grand stories, not myths, not rituals, just quiet thoughts about the day. Someone might mention tracks they saw in the snow. Another might recall a moment when the wind shifted suddenly. These reflections weren't spoken with intensity. They were gentle observations, shared calmly, as if placing small stones into a peaceful stream. If your breathing softens here, let it. These slow exchanges mimic the same rhythm you're settling into now. Sometimes, they sat in silence, listening to the fire's soft crackle or the faint movement of snow outside the shelter. Silence didn't feel empty. It felt natural, an extension of the quiet landscape beyond their walls. In this silence, they processed the events of the day without pressure, letting each thought rise and fade like embers drifting upward. Children curled close to their families, their tired bodies sinking into the warmth of hides. The calmness of the group wrapped around them like a soft blanket. signaling that the day's work was done and that safety surrounded them completely. If your eyelids grow heavier, let them drift downward. These evenings were designed by nature to encourage rest, and the narration follows the same gentle path. The elders sometimes offered small pieces of wisdom, not through speeches, but through simple comments. They might mention how the snow fell differently than it had in previous seasons, or how animal movements had shifted slightly. These reflections weren't warnings. They were reminders to stay attentive to the land, to respect its changes, and to move with care in the days ahead. Others used the quiet time to mend clothing or adjust tools. Their hands moved slowly, guided by the fire's light. The sound of thread sliding through hide or stone gliding against bone added a soft texture to the evening atmosphere. These tasks weren't chores. They were comforting rituals that signaled stability. If your thoughts drift away momentarily, don't pull them back. That gentle drifting mirrors the peaceful atmosphere that surrounded early humans as they prepared for sleep. Sometimes, someone would lean back and simply watch the fire. The flickering flames reflected in their eyes, offering a small pocket of warmth in the vast cold of the Ice Age. Watching fire wasn't a form of worship, it was a form of rest. A moment to let the mind empty itself of the day's weight and settle into the simple pleasure of warmth and stillness allowed by Allah's mercy. Within the quiet, there was often a shared understanding that tomorrow would bring new challenges. More tracking, more gathering, more travel across the frozen plains. Yet these evenings created a pause, a gentle space where responsibility could loosen its hold and peace could settle naturally. If you're beginning to feel the same peace, let it deepen. The calm of these reflections is meant to gently guide you toward rest. Shadows danced softly across the shelter walls, moving in harmony with the fire. These shapes, familiar and comforting, created a sense of rhythm that lulled the group further into quiet. The dim light softened every movement, making the shelter feel smaller, warmer, safer, a place where nothing rushed and nothing demanded attention. And as part one of this segment draws to a gentle pause, imagine the community settling further into their evening stillness, voices soft, movement slower, fire glowing steadily. In the quiet of these ancient nights, they found a peace that carried them into sleep, just as this calm may be carrying you now. As the evening deepened and the fire settled into a soft bed of glowing embers, the shelter grew quieter still. Early humans sat a little closer, allowing the warm air to wrap gently around their tired limbs. This time of day invited calm reflection, nothing forced, nothing structured. Just the quiet flow of thoughts drifting lightly across their minds, the same way snow drifted across the frozen plains outside. The dim orange light painted soft halos along the edges of their clothing. It highlighted the curve of a shoulder, the bend of a knee, the relaxed rise and fall of their breathing. These small details created an atmosphere of calm intimacy, a shared stillness that made the entire group feel grounded and safe. If your thoughts begin slipping in and out like faint embers, allow them to drift. Quiet evenings carried this same drifting quality, gently loosening whatever tension lingered from the day. Stories from the day continued in small fragments, someone recalling the sound of distant cracking ice, another mentioning the way the wind shifted around a hill. These weren't dramatic accounts. They were small observations, spoken softly, helping everyone stay connected to the land and to one another. From time to time, someone would adjust the fire, nudging a piece of wood into place with slow, mindful movements. Sparks rose briefly, floating like tiny fireflies before fading into the shadows above. This act wasn't for entertainment. It was simply part of maintaining warmth, a nightly routine carried out with calm familiarity. If your breathing slows while imagining these sparks drifting upward, let that softness settle deeper. Evening rituals like this were meant to encourage rest, and the narration seeks to reflect that same soothing rhythm. Some individuals preferred to lie back on hides, gazing at the shelter's ceiling or the circle of glowing embers. Their thoughts wandered gently through memories of past winters, places traveled, or lessons learned from the land. Nothing heavy, nothing unsettling, just quiet reflections rolling slowly through their minds like the movement of clouds. The youngest members of the group often fell asleep first. Their slow breaths and peaceful expressions reminded everyone else that rest was natural, safe, and welcome. Seeing them sleep often encouraged others to release their own tension, letting their bodies sink deeper into warmth. If your eyes feel heavy too, that's normal. These evenings carried a natural invitation to sleep, just as this story gently guides you toward stillness. Cold winds occasionally brushed against the outside of the shelter, creating a soft rustling sound. Instead of stirring worry, the sound reassured them. They knew the walls of their shelter were strong. They knew they were together. And with the warmth inside steadily maintained, the world outside could continue its winter song without disturbing their peace. Sometimes, someone would hum softly, not a melody of worship or ritual, just a simple, steady sound meant to soothe children or ease restless energy. The hum blended with the crackling of the fire and the quiet breathing of those gathered, creating a soothing harmony that filled the space like a warm blanket. If your mind begins to drift away briefly, let it. This kind of gentle background comfort is meant to blur the edges of wakefulness. Supplies for the next day were checked one last time. Tools placed near the entrance, food stored securely, hides arranged for warmth. These tasks were small but meaningful, helping everyone feel prepared before allowing sleep to take over. Preparation brought peace, even when done silently. As the night grew deeper, the fire's glow dimmed, leaving the shelter bathed in soft shadows. Faces softened, shoulders lowered, and movements slowed until only the most essential gestures remained. The group settled into their resting places, trusting the quiet, the warmth, and each other. If your thoughts feel weightless now, you're aligning with the same gentle tide of rest that filled their evenings. Nothing demands your urgency here. And as this segment comes to its soft close, imagine the shelter fully embraced by the stillness of night. The crackle of the fire fades into a gentle whisper. The frozen world outside becomes a quiet backdrop. And within the shelter, a peaceful community drifts into sleep, wrapped in warmth, wrapped in calm, wrapped in a quiet that invites you to rest alongside them. As the Ice Age slowly loosened its grip on the world, change didn't arrive with loud storms or sudden warmth. It came quietly, almost shyly, in small details only the most attentive eyes could notice. Early humans, accustomed to reading the land, sensed these changes long before they became obvious. The snow felt subtly different beneath their feet. The air carried faint hints of milder days. Even the distant hills looked softer in shape, as though the ice had begun to exhale after a long, frozen stillness. In the mornings, the world still appeared cold and unmoving, but those who lived closest to the land felt the shifts. A layer of ice that once cracked sharply underfoot now flexed in a gentler way. Drifts of snow melted slightly faster under the pale sun. These were tiny signs, barely noticeable, but early humans had learned to pay attention to even the smallest details, the ones Allah allowed to reveal the slow turning of seasons. If your mind begins to soften with these images, let it. The quiet, gradual nature of these changes mirrors the peaceful drift toward rest. Animals were often the first clear indicators of transformation. Herds that once moved predictably along frozen paths began to alter their routes. Some lingered longer in certain valleys. Others appeared earlier than expected. Footprints near the shelter told silent stories. New patterns, new movements, subtle clues that the world was shifting beneath the snow-covered surface. Sometimes, early humans noticed patches of earth peeking through the snow a little earlier each year. These exposed spots carried hints of moisture and new scents, fresh soil, dormant plants preparing to return. It wasn't dramatic, but it brought a small sense of curiosity and calm hope, reminding them that even the coldest land eventually softened under Allah's will. If you feel your breathing slowing naturally here, let it continue. The fading of winter pressure encourages a softer rhythm. The wind, too, changed. Once sharp and relentless, it occasionally arrived with a gentler tone. Instead of biting against their faces, it brushed lightly, carrying the faintest suggestion of warmer air. Early humans didn't assume it meant spring had arrived. They simply noted the difference and tucked it quietly into their understanding of the season. Melting ice created subtle sounds, soft drips echoing within caves, gentle trickles beneath snowbanks, the faint snap of frost loosening its hold on tree branches. These sounds were delicate and fleeting, But to ears trained by years of surviving in the cold, they signaled the beginning of something new. If you drift a little while listening, allow that drift to deepen. These sounds, soft and distant, were meant to soothe rather than alert. Streams that had remained frozen for months began to show ribbons of movement. Water, dark and smooth, slipped beneath thin layers of ice. Its slow return felt like a whisper of life beneath the stillness. Early humans sometimes knelt near these streams, watching the water glide quietly, appreciating its presence without needing to say anything. Birds played a role too. Their calls, once rare during the deepest winter, grew more frequent as temperatures shifted. A single chirp could draw soft smiles or thoughtful glances. These sounds weren't loud or celebratory. They were gentle reminders that the land was stirring. If your eyes begin to feel heavy, let them. The calm awakening of nature carries the same quiet weight that invites sleep. Snow that once stayed rigid began to sink slightly, becoming softer underfoot. Early humans adjusted their footing, noticing how the snow no longer held the same firm texture. The change was subtle, but their bodies felt it naturally, responding with careful, measured steps. Changes in the sky also caught their attention. Clouds passed differently, shaped by shifting winds. Sunlight lingered a bit longer in the evenings, extending the gentle glow across the frozen plains. The difference wasn't large, maybe just a few heartbeats longer, but enough to remind them that winter never held its place forever. If your thoughts wander away and return slowly, that's perfectly fine. The gradual nature of this transition mirrors the gentle ebb and flow of a sleepy mind. And as part one comes to a soft pause, imagine early humans sitting quietly near their shelters, observing these tiny, delicate hints of change. Nothing rushed, nothing dramatic, just the peaceful understanding that the frozen world was slowly, gently shifting, preparing for the next season in the natural cycles set by Allah. In this calm awareness, they found reassurance, patience, and a quiet hope that carried them into the night. As the subtle signs of shifting seasons continued, early humans grew more attuned to the rhythms unfolding around them. They didn't expect sudden warmth or dramatic transformation. They understood that nature changed slowly through countless gentle cues. Each day brought something new to observe, small details that guided their decisions with quiet clarity. These hints felt like whispers from the land, subtle reminders that nothing remained frozen forever under Allah's design. One of the clearest transformations came from the animals. Some species that usually kept their distance began appearing more frequently near water sources. Their coats shed more easily, drifting in the wind like soft tufts of pale fiber. These simple changes told early humans that migration patterns might shift, offering both opportunity and caution as they planned future hunts. If your mind begins drifting softly with these observations, let it drift. The slow unfolding of this transition mirrors the natural descent into rest. The sunlight also shifted in color. What was once a pale, icy glow gained the slightest hint of warmth. Even though temperatures remained cold, the light felt different on their skin. It stretched farther across the snowy plains, illuminating textures and shapes that had gone unnoticed during the darkest months. Early humans recognized this difference with quiet appreciation. Small streams grew bolder. Instead of hiding beneath thick ice, water moved more freely, weaving delicate paths across frozen ground. The sound was soft but steady, tiny drips falling into small pools, gentle trickles forming beneath thin layers of melting frost. These sounds brought a sense of calm, reminding the community that the world was slowly awakening. If your breathing has grown deeper, let it settle further. These details are not meant to capture your full attention, only to soothe your thoughts. Sometimes, early humans noticed that the coldest winds came less frequently. The air still carried crispness, but the sharp bite lessened. This slight gentleness allowed them to travel a little farther each day, their steps feeling less strained. Even the snow seemed to accept their presence more easily, shifting softly beneath their feet. Trees and shrubs, though sparse in many regions, also hinted at seasonal changes. Buds formed quietly, waiting beneath protective layers. Their branches held new tension, as though preparing for the season ahead. Early humans observed these changes carefully, knowing that fresh growth would bring more food and materials. If your thoughts wander in gentle, looping patterns, let them. The world they lived in encouraged the same gentle wandering of the mind. The sky played its role too. Stars appeared slightly later each night, and the moon's glow stretched across wider portions of the land. Clouds moved differently, drifting in shapes that were more fluid than in the heart of winter. These small shifts offered comfort, reminding the community that the long night of winter was slowly transitioning toward brightness. During evenings, when gatherings took place around the fire, people shared what they had noticed: soft changes in the snow's texture, new tracks leading toward a thawing valley, or the faint scent of moisture rising from the earth. These shared observations strengthened their understanding, guiding the choices they would make in the coming days. If your eyelids grow heavy, it's all right. These peaceful details are meant to ease you closer to sleep. Hunting strategies also adapted gently. Instead of relying heavily on deep winter patterns, they prepared for more fluid movements among the animals. The land itself guided them, offering clues in the way snow melted unevenly or how footsteps sank deeper in certain places. Through careful observation, they moved in harmony with these changes rather than resisting them. Even their shelters reflected the new season. Ventilation improved slightly as they adjusted hides to allow more air to flow. Tools were prepared for the coming months: scrapers for cleaning hides, baskets for gathering plants, and warm weather clothing checked for wear. Every adjustment was done calmly, in the same steady rhythm that shaped their daily lives. And as part 2 comes to a gentle close, imagine early humans ending their day with quiet reflection, sitting near the fire as the world outside shifts ever so slightly. The air cools, the embers glow, and they rest with peaceful awareness, knowing that the frozen land, once locked in winter's grasp, is slowly beginning to change. Just like their calm acceptance, you too can ease into rest, carried softly by this gradual, soothing transformation. In the vast frozen world of 20,000 years ago, survival was not loud or dramatic. It didn't come from moments of sudden triumph. It came from something quieter, something steady, patient, and deeply human. Early humans survived because they embraced a slow, thoughtful rhythm of life, moving with the land Allah created, rather than against it. Their strength wasn't found in force. It was found in calm endurance, in the gentle persistence that carried them through each long day. When the cold pressed against their shelters, they didn't panic. They tended the fire. They checked their supplies. They watched the snow and listened to the wind. Their actions were simple, but each one mattered. This quiet consistency became the foundation of their survival, teaching them that small efforts, repeated day after day, were often stronger than fierce bursts of energy. If your thoughts begin to soften with these reflections, let them. The steady resilience of these early humans echoes the gentle settling of a mind preparing for rest. They understood their world intimately. The way ice cracked under pressure, the sound of distant animal calls, the texture of snow shaped by shifting winds, each detail offered clues. These weren't mystical signs, nor objects of worship. They were natural signals, part of the environment Allah designed, guiding them step by step through the harshness of winter. Their calm approach to challenges helped them endure even the hardest days. When food was scarce, they adjusted their routines. When storms rose suddenly across the plains, they settled deeper into their shelters. When journeys stretched longer than expected, they conserved their strength, moving with patience rather than fear. This quiet strength was not heroic in appearance, but it was powerful in practice. If your breathing slows here, allow it. Their gentle steadiness is meant to mirror the same slow rhythm that carries you towards sleep. Even in moments of uncertainty, they trusted in their preparation. The tools they crafted, the clothing they stitched, the fires they tended, all of it built a safety net woven from countless small decisions. And through Allah's mercy, these careful actions carried them from one frozen season to the next. Their strength also came from the way they supported one another. A person who faltered didn't struggle alone. Others stepped beside them, offering warmth, food, or a steady hand. This unity didn't require dramatic speeches. It was expressed through simple gestures, sharing a seat near the fire, helping adjust layers of clothing, or guiding footsteps across treacherous ice. If your mind drifts in and out of these images, let that drift feel natural. This story is meant to cradle your thoughts, not hold them tightly. Nighttime often revealed the depth of their quiet resilience. While the world outside froze under the weight of winter, they rested together in peaceful clusters. Their calm breathing, their steady warmth, and the soft crackle of the fire created an atmosphere of safety that allowed them to sleep deeply despite the cold pressing at the walls. Each morning, they rose with the same gentle determination. There was no rush, no frantic energy, just the understanding that survival required steady attention, checking conditions, preparing food, reinforcing the shelter, and supporting one another through another day. These routines formed the backbone of their strength. If your eyelids grow heavier, let them ease downward. The slow, patient survival of these early humans reflects the same softness that draws you toward rest. Their relationship with the land wasn't one of domination. They didn't try to overpower nature. Instead, they lived within its rhythms, respecting the balance that allowed both humans and animals to survive. This humility brought a sense of calmness to their efforts, a reminder that strength doesn't always need noise to be real. Some evenings, they paused to watch the sky shift. Stars glimmered steadily above them, the moon casting pale light over the snow. These quiet views didn't demand awe or worship. They simply reminded them of the vastness of the world and their place within it, a place held together by patience, cooperation, and trust in Allah's design. And as we reach the end of part 1, imagine early humans settling into their shelters once more, tired, calm, and quietly confident. Their strength wasn't loud. It was steady. It was gentle. And it carried them through the frozen world, one patient breath at a time. As the seasons slowly shifted and the frozen world began to soften, early humans continued relying on the quiet strength that had carried them through countless winters. Their resilience didn't come from sudden bursts of bravery. It came from the steady, practiced patience they had woven into their lives, small acts, repeated gently, that allowed them to endure even when the world felt unyielding. They learned to recognize how their choices connected to their survival, gathering wood before storms, repairing tools even when tired, sharing warmth on the coldest nights. Each action, though simple, carried a weight that kept their community safe. These rhythms became part of who they were, steady, thoughtful, deeply aware of the land around them. If your thoughts are drifting softly now, let them drift. Their way of life was slow by necessity, and that same slowness is meant to soothe you into rest. On long journeys, when the wind pushed hard against them, they leaned into one another. Strength wasn't measured individually, it flowed through the group. When one person faltered, the others adjusted their steps, sharing the burden without hesitation. Together, they moved forward, step by step, supported by a unity formed through years of shared struggle. At night, when uncertainty crept across the plains, they found comfort in their routines. A small fire, a shared meal, a quiet moment of reflection. These were the anchors that held them steady. They trusted in their preparation, trusted in their companions, and trusted in the natural balance Allah placed in the world. If your breathing deepens here, let it deepen fully. The calm persistence of these early humans mirrors the softening quiet that helps guide you towards sleep. Even as the ice slowly loosened its grip on the land, challenges never disappeared completely. But early humans met each new day with the same gentle determination. They had learned that survival was not a race. It was a long, steady journey shaped by observation, patience, and the willingness to adapt without panic. Their tools, shelters, clothing, and cooperation carried the imprint of generations before them. Everything they used and everything they understood had been shaped through quiet, careful hands. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was wasted. Their lives were a testament to how strength can exist in silence, how resilience can bloom in gentleness. If your eyelids grow heavy now, allow that heaviness to settle. The world they lived in encourages stillness, just as this story invites your mind to soften. As nights warmed slightly and days grew longer, they recognized their progress not through grand changes, but through tiny, almost invisible signs: the drip of melting ice, the return of migrating animals, the softened wind brushing against their shelters. These subtle shifts reminded them that perseverance brought reward, and that every difficult season eventually eased with Allah's mercy. In these moments, they often paused at the edge of their shelters, gazing quietly across the land. There was no triumph in their expressions, only steady gratitude and the calm knowledge that they had endured through patience and cooperation. This quiet reflection helped them gather strength for the days ahead. If your mind drifts into a peaceful haze, let it drift. These gentle moments of reflection exist to help you rest. And now, as this final segment nears its end, imagine early humans settling down once more for the night. Their breath warm in the cool air, their bodies wrapped in well-worn hides, their hearts steady, anchored by the simple truth that quiet persistence had carried them through another day. This is the gentle strength that ensured their survival, the power of patience, the comfort of community, and the quiet acceptance of a world always changing under Allah's design. Thank you for listening to this calm and quiet journey through the frozen world. I hope it brought you warmth, stillness, and a gentle sense of peace. May your night be restful, your mind unburdened, and your heart steady. Until the next story, rest well and good night.